utility companies. We've basically maxed out everything we can make for them. Well, for those on the space research project, there's 3 big generation and 2 big flagship satellites together. They each have very large ground systems with lots of computers, lots of servers, the whole third floor of the building. Matter of fact, the third floor had incredible size. But half of it at the time we were designing was for computers, the other half was for different rooms and spaces and classrooms. So basically, the whole thing one piece computer for us to make sure we have the different reliability and intelligence and to be able to operate all these new satellites that are going to start flying next year with GOES-R.
Right now, we're going to go to Mike Carey with a preview of NASA Television's coverage of the GOES-R launch coming up at 4:45.
Thank you, Franklin. I'm here in the Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, where the launch control team is. This is where all the folks are getting ready to launch the Atlas V rocket with NOAA's GOES-R.
Roger.
Good day from the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov outside of Moscow. Welcome to our coverage of the arrival of 3 new residents to the International Space Station. You're looking at a view from a balcony camera overlooking the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Korolyov, where a huge crowd of NASA, European Space Agency, and Russian Federal Space Agency officials, family and guests and VIPs are on hand to watch the arrival a short time from now of the 3 new residents who will board the International Space Station a bit later this morning. That trio consisting of Oleg Novitsky, the Soyuz commander who is strapped into the center seat of the Soyuz MS-03 vehicle. To his left, the board engineer number 1 from the European Space Agency, Thomas Pesquet, and to Novitsky's right, NASA flight engineer Peggy Whitson, who is about to arrive for her 3rd long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station in what should be ultimately a record-breaking tour for Whitson on board the International Outpost. The 3 crew members will be joining later this morning the 3 current residents on board the International Space Station. NASA Commander Shane Kimbrough, his Russian colleagues Sergei Ryzhikov and Andrei Borisenko, who arrived aboard the International Space Station just a month ago on October 21st aboard the Soyuz MS-02 vehicle, which is docked to the space-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, the Poisk module. The destination for Witsin, Novitsky, and Pesquet is the Earth-facing port on the Russian segment of the International Space Station, that being the Rosviet module that is attached to the Zarya module of the International Space Station, which was launched 18 years ago this morning, Moscow time, on November 20th, 1998. So an anniversary being celebrated with the arrival of 3 new residents to the International Space Station that will bring Expedition 50 to a full complement of 3 crew members. At this hour, the International Space Station is flying 251 statute miles above the Earth, moving from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, flying over the Pacific Ocean. Soon, the complex will be making a swing across the southern Atlantic Ocean, where docking is expected to occur within the hour. The docking time is scheduled at 4:02 p.m. Central Time, 1:02 a.m. Moscow time, if everything goes as planned. So far, so good. The Corps' automated rendezvous system on the Soyuz MS-03 vehicle, as well as the corresponding hardware on the service module, the Zvezda service module of the International Space Station, those 2 systems have locked on to one another as we continue a steady approach and a pinpoint approach by the Soyuz vehicle for an on-time docking to the Rosviet module of the International Space Station.
Скорость минус 14,8, есть единица захват.
Just 2 days ago, from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, the temperatures were frigid, but the spirits were warm as engine ignition occurred on the Soyuz MS-03 vehicle, at liftoff occurring at 2:20 p.m. Central Time on Thursday, which was 2:20 a.m. Baikonur time in the wee hours of Friday morning on the central steppe of Kazakhstan. An 8-minute, 45-second ascent for the Soyuz booster and its Soyuz spacecraft. Everything went by the book with third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation, followed a few seconds later by the deployment of the navigational antennas and the solar arrays on the Soyuz MS-03 to begin an automated approach and all of the engine firings and airings in this rendezvous that have brought the Soyuz virtually now into the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Again, docking is scheduled at 4:02 p.m. Central Time this afternoon within the hour. The Soyuz will arrive at what is known as a ballistic targeting point about 11 minutes from now at the bottom of the hour. After that, it will begin a fly-around of the International Space Station at a fly-around angle of just 56 degrees to precisely point the docking probe, which has been extended at the forward of the Soyuz's orbital module, the upper stage, if you will, of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle for a short period of station keeping to allow flight controllers here in the Russian Mission Control Center to precisely calculate and assess the alignment of the Soyuz and its docking before the command is given to begin the final approach for contact and capture, which again should occur at 4:02 p.m. Central Time, 5:02 p.m. Eastern Time, just after 1 a.m. here in Moscow on a Sunday morning.
We forgot to ask you if you are recording. Repeat, please.
Камеры GoPro включили вовремя,
GoPro
подтвердите.
cameras, did you turn them on?
Подтверждаем,
Are
камеры
they
включены
working?
вовремя. Хорошо, я понял. Ну вот, продолжаем получать.
Half a world away at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, at the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers has taken its place on console. They are watching over all of the systems of the International Space Station. Today on console, leading this flight control team is Flight Director Tony Sakachi, second from your right, joined on console by former astronaut and now Flight Director T.J. Creamer. Also, just at the top of your screen, a pair of astronauts, Jessica Meir, second from the top of your screen, who will be talking to Shane Kimbrough and his crewmates aboard the International Space Station in the terminal phase of this rendezvous. At the very top of your screen, veteran astronaut and now a member of the commercial crew cadre, Sunny Williams, who is sitting on console as a Soyuz systems expert, should her expertise be required during the course of the final phase of today's rendezvous for docking.
Принято.
Step 450, CSA for taking a displacement of 45.
Roger. Да, 6300, скорость минус 10.
While the Soyuz is in the terminal phase of its approach for docking to the International Space Station, other space news being made down at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, where an Atlas V rocket on a cloudless day stands poised for launch at 5:42 p.m. Eastern Time to carry the geostationary operational environmental satellite R-Series, or the GOES-R satellite, into orbit. The first in a cadre of next generation of geostationary weather satellites that will significantly improve the detection and observation of environmental phenomena that directly affect public safety, protection of property, and the nation's economic health and prosperity. The launch coverage for the GOES-R satellite will begin first on the NASA TV media channel at 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Once we complete our docking coverage, then that will be joined and co-anchored both on the public and media channels of NASA television.
Получаем хорошее телевизионное изображение, видим станцию в центре. Мы тоже наблюдаем по ВСК и новинку. Дальность 5300, скорость минус 9,1. Есть единица, есть захват.
The Soyuz MS-03 vehicle is less than 5.5 kilometers away from its destination for docking to the Rassvet module of the International Space Station, currently closing at a rate of about 9 meters per second. Everything continues to go normally. For this very precision-like approach by the Soyuz, you're looking at a view from an external camera on the Soyuz vehicle as it captures its view of the International Space Station. In the lower left-hand corner of this engineering overlay, you see the distance and the rate of closure, now just under 5 kilometers away from contact and capture to the International Space Station.
T-minus 1 hour, 10 minutes.
Есть давление включения ДПО. Да, наблюдаем.
all steps are complete. Step number 4 is
Дальность 4400.
We have range of 400.
Скорость минус 8,6. Есть единица, есть захват.
And rate of -8.6.
Принято.
If everything goes as planned, with docking scheduled within the hour at 4:02 p.m. Central Time, 1:02 a.m. Moscow time, the post-docking scenario would call for the relative motion of the Soyuz vehicle and the International Space Station to dampen out so that the force of contact, if you will, of the Soyuz against the docking mechanism on the Raspet vehicle would enable a relative motion of about 0 between the two vehicles before the docking probe begins to retract on the Soyuz to pull the two docking interfaces flush against one another and enable hooks to close to form a hard mate between the Soyuz and the Raspet module of the International Space Station. That will commence about a 2.5-hour period of leak checks and other systems checks on both sides of the docking interface, the pressurization of the small passageway between the Soyuz and the Raspet module that will lead to the opening of the hatches between the two vehicles that is scheduled at about 3:35 a.m. Moscow time or 6:35 p.m. Houston time, 2.5 hours after docking.
Roger.
Дальность 3400, скорость минус 8,4.
Range is -8.4.
At 30%. Roger.
Дальность 300, скорость 8,5, знак минус. Принято. Идем выше трубки. Я вас понял. Сейчас процесс.